as art teachers, we are masters of transitions. We go from teaching this class to teaching that class, to using this medium, to teaching that medium. We also need to teach that to our students, because a lot of times our students are transitioning. They're going from in the hallway behavior to how do they come in and behave in art. They're going from how do I go from the carpet in art to sitting at my seat. They have to be able to stop what they're doing on their art project and clean up. Some of these are really tricky transitions. So you really need to think them through ahead of time so that you have very purposeful, effective, and respectful transitions in your art room, because if you can master this, it makes your teaching a lot easier. Hey there, if we haven't met before, my name is Katie Jarvis. I'm a K-6 elementary art teacher, and I teach right here at a Title I school just outside of Washington, D.C. In this video, I'm going to talk about whole class transitions within the art room, individual transitions, and unexpected transitions, those things like fire drills that you had no idea were coming. The first transition that happens in art is your students may be in the hallway and they have to move into your art making space, or perhaps you're on a cart and you have to transition and come into your student space. So all you need to do is prepare your students for what is going to happen. If you're in a classroom, you'll want to go out in the hallway the first few weeks of school and stop and greet the class and remind them about what is expected when they come in. Hopefully you're going out there to greet a quiet and respectful line already, but if not, you're going to need to get some order to that line. I got this little, it's like a visual direction chart. This one I made from a resource from My Day in K. It's a seller on Teachers Pay Teachers, and these little social stories help to teach. They are sold by special education teachers and kindergarten teachers on Teachers Pay Teachers, so look out for them. But this one really has helped me to make it very clear with what's expected with coming into the art room. So I'm greeting my students outside, and then I'm helping them to come into the art room. In the first few weeks of school, I'm going over this again and again and again. So I'm saying this 25 times in a week, which seems like, oh my gosh, you think by the second week, don't they know how to do this? But if you're seeing your classes one day a week, like I'm seeing mine, they've only heard me say this once. So it's something you need to be really aware of. You're just going to be repeating yourself over and over and over in the first few weeks of school. Get used to it. That is good teaching. If you're only teaching kids once a week, they're only hearing it once. So you're going to have to repeat yourself like 3-4 weeks in a row about how to come in to really get this routine solid with your students. And guess what? You're going to be going over this transition of like how to enter the art room space after any breaks, after winter break, after spring break, after a long weekend. You might just want to pop out there, greet your students, and go back to the routine that you did at the very beginning of the year to set those high expectations. If you're coming into someone else's space, you'll need to teach your students what they will do when they see you. Do they clear everything off of their desk to get ready for you? Should they, are there people that will be helping you and they need to come up and greet you and ask you how to help? How does that look for you if you're going into someone else's space, if you're perhaps on a cart? I really like to have a visual cue and an auditory one. That class is starting and what is expected of students. So I start out with a slide up on the board that asks people to sit quietly. And then when I'm ready to begin the class, I start with a clap. It's just this little goofy one that I guess I made up. It's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Don't hit clap. So it's just a little clapping pattern that they have to kind of think about because of that whole no hitting part and then clapping at the end. And that means that art is starting. So I ask students to turn their voices off and put their eyes on me. So that's helping them transition from we were in the hallway, now we know we're sitting quietly, and we know that art is going to begin. And it's like that every time, so they know exactly what to expect. I find it really helpful to go over Mona Lisa listening so they can transition from, they might have just come from recess, they're coming into the art room, like what do we need to do to calm and center ourselves? I say Mona, you say Lisa. Mona, Lisa, Mona, Lisa. Do a quick body check that your hands are still, that your eyes are forward, that your lips are zipped. If they know that you're gonna hold them to those standards and say that each and every time, you're gonna see that they're already there before you even start talking. They're just gonna see your slide or see you point over at your Mona Lisa, and they will have it down. But it's an important transition to really master, because you might be able to get their attention, but you also need to remember you need to hold their attention so you can get through your art lessons, you can get through your instructions. So you finished your lesson. I have my students start out on the carpet. What comes next? Because this could be right when things fall apart if you don't have a good plan for how you're going to transition. With all these transitions, it's things you need to think through ahead of time and plan for, because if you've got a plan for these things and how it's going to work, and we're lucky, we're specialists, we're getting to do this, Monday through Friday, we get to do these transitions again and again and again. You can really perfect these routines so that they work for you. So what I do is when my lesson has ended, I have a talking sign, so it's been in a red zone where they're not allowed to talk. I change it to the yellow zone, but I remind students that they still need to be listening to me, because I'm going to be giving directions for students so that they can begin helping. And I pass out these little job tags. This was something I got on Teachers Pay Teachers, but it has what the job is for the students. And I like to try to lay these out ahead of time. I might do it as the last class is leaving, my next class is walking in. Or maybe when they're watching like video directions or something like that, I'll set these out. And they will be assigned a job if they're at my helper table. So a few students get these jobs, they wear these lanyards, they begin doing their jobs. Then I'm talking to the entire group of remaining students on the carpet and getting them to transition from the carpet to their seats. I give them something to do. And I also, by like stopping and addressing that group again, I'm giving those helpers a head start on doing the jobs. Things like passing out the pencils that are kind of quick, I would probably pass those out last. Things that take a little bit longer, like maybe passing out the papers, I would start with those jobs so those kids have a few extra seconds to begin getting things out. On the carpet, I might divide the students up between the girls and the boys and ask that the girls line up to get their art shirts first. Or I might ask all the students to go back to their seats and take their chairs down. And I let my students, as soon as they're seated and they receive their supplies from the helpers, to begin. So there's not a lot of lag time. And I try to give the people on the carpet one thing to do. I might have them go and get their scissors and then bring the scissors back to their seat. So by the time they are getting to their seat, the helpers have sort of made their rounds with those supplies and everything can keep moving forward. I think when you have lag time, that's when those behaviors begin, when students are kind of bored or they don't really know what to do. So I think if you can have things so that it moves quite quickly from the lesson to being able to jump right in to make things and giving everybody something to do, even the people that are not like the assigned helpers for that day, giving them a job like getting an art shirt, getting the scissors, taking down the chairs, that really helps. I'm pretty neurotic about the whole transition about passing out artwork, because I felt like in my first few years of teaching, it was the moment when things kind of fell apart in my class, because I just couldn't get the artwork out to people fast enough, especially when you're sitting there calling names and having people come up to get their work. So some systems that I have used to help ease this transition are table folders. This is just laminated construction paper. This will save you. Laminated, 12 by 18 construction paper folded in half. So if we're doing something like a planning sheet, we pass these out to each table, they put their papers inside, we simply just clip this together, put this in a drawer for their grade level. It is very easy for a student to pass these out the next week because it's already separated out by table. Now I do pre-printed mailing labels on my students' artwork, and the mailing label has their seat number. We would take their artwork, and as I'm bringing it off the drying rack and another class is there working, I put it in number order. I often will even have students help me to put it in number order, and then I store it in these giant cardboard folders. I don't know if you can still get these, but if you could make something like this with poster board or something, it is definitely a lifesaver. So big enough that any artwork could fit inside. And this is just for our current artwork that we would be like saving for, you know, that week and then pulling it back out to finish it the next week. I have kind of just like some spots in my storage closet where I can store these, but in the past when I had less space, I had those gigantic Rubbermaid tubs and I just put these in there like filing folders. The numbers on the artwork is what really saves me. So when the class comes in again, I can quickly pass these out like in seconds because I know the exact order of where they sit. It's also easy to like divide it in half and have an upper grade student to pass it out as well when things are very, very organized. I have a whole system too about how I deal with the transition of like, what if somebody is absent, and a video detailing all of how I deal with the artwork. So if you're looking for more information about that, I'm gonna have a pinned comment. So like the comment that's at the very top down below, and that's where you're gonna find the videos. If you wanna take a deeper dive into any of these transitions, that's where you're gonna find that information to help you out. A really big transition that you have no option but to become good at is transitioning students from 1 minute they're working and the next minute they have to stop and clean up. Something that's helped me to ease students into this transition is having a visual timer. Again, I'm gonna link some in the description. They have really cute ones. Mine's kind of plain. Now they have ones that are like fruits and rainbows and stuff, and at some point if mine dies, I'll definitely be upgrading, but that helps students. Also, having a routine that is a bit the same for cleanup is nice because it's gonna be different when you're cleaning up paint or you're cleaning up clay, or your class is doing this, but the next class is doing this. So today, don't put the water cups away. Things are gonna be different every time with your specific directions. So anything that you can do to make your cleanup routine the same so they know, oh, hey, this is the cleanup part, like I know what's happening, that's gonna help. I have a whole video about how to avoid cleanup chaos, but I think I'll just highlight for you, one of the best things that I did was create a routine of giving the directions, because all these transitions, you need to be sharing information. And not only do you have to get their attention, you have to hold their attention. And especially when their little brains are like, oh my goodness, I wanna finish this. Or, oh, I know what they're gonna say next. I wanna start helping and cleaning up. It's hard. For cleaning up, I blink the lights so visually they can see like something's changing. They can't ignore me. They see the lights are blinking. Then I always say macaroni and cheese. They say everybody freeze. I remind them that we're not walking, we're not talking. And we say in a minute, but not yet. Remember, the secret signal is I'm gonna turn the lights on and then you're going to move. And this also ties in with a point on my behavior management system. So I have a happy and sad board. I've got a video with more details about that if you're curious, but I give students a point if they're really doing a good job of freezing and listening to the cleanup directions, because that's the point in my routine when I start giving out those directions that things might be a little bit different. I might remember something that I forgot to say at the beginning. Also, giving good cleanup transitions and getting that to go very smoothly. You're not just gonna give those cleanup directions at the end of the class. You're gonna be talking about it at the beginning of the class too. You're gonna be showing them pictures of, this is where the paintbrush hot tub is. This is where Pennsylvania is. This is where you get the glue sticks. Guess what? This is where you put the glue sticks back. So that also really helps with your cleanup. Again, I've got a whole video that I've really enjoyed making for you, because it was one of those transitions cleaning up where like if I was being evaluated, I would think to myself, oh, this is going really well. And then I'd also be like, and I hope they leave before we start cleaning up. But after I really revamped this routine and got really good with the transition of cleaning up, I kind of always hoped they stayed, because I thought, oh my God, they're going to be wowed at how hard these kids work to clean up and how this is not a crazy wild time, but it's actually very controlled. Everyone has their part and they know what to do to get back into their seats and to get lined up. Lining up is a really important transition. For me, it happens at the end of every art class. So this is something that I'm gonna be doing hundreds of times in the school year. So I want it to be calm. I want students to know what to expect. I don't want this to be a time when I'm getting really frustrated and annoyed with students. So one thing I would suggest is, If you've got carpet, using what is called a sit spot, which is like a Velcro dot that sticks down on the carpet. What I have, since I have tile floors, is vinyl circles. I got these on Amazon. They stay down all year long. They're pretty easy to remove at the end of the year with a scraper, but I would definitely recommend them because each student stands on each spot. Now, I have assigned spots because I've got those table numbers. They also have a line number. So if they sit on number three is on their artwork. Number 3 is where they line up. I ignore the teacher's line order. And I do a silent dismissal. So if you're looking for more information about lining up and keeping students quiet, because I even have a little game we play at the end, I've got a whole video that kind of goes through that routine. But it's a transition that you really need to master and find a routine for you that works, because like I said, you're gonna be doing this again and again and again. If I have to stop my students and transition them from one activity to the next, one thing to the next, got to add in a direction or something like that, I do the callback where I say class, 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 and they respond yes, yes, yes. The students have to listen because however I say class, they respond with yes in the same way. So if I were to say classity class, they have to say yesity yes. And then you really need to train your students to stop, look, and listen. It's not enough to just do the little callback and then just go on your way. Getting students' attention is one thing, holding their attention is a whole nother thing. And you really do know when you've got everybody looking at you and you've got their attention, and you know when you don't. And when you start talking and giving transition directions, when people are talking and moving and not really listening, you're letting them know that that's okay to do. So it's something that you need to be a real stickler about the first few weeks of school, actually the first few months of school, till you really get things down that you mean business. When you say class, class, they say yes, yes, and they are listening. You're not having to reteach. No, remember when I say that, that's when you listen, because it's going to get really old really fast. Another one that I use that works really well, because a lot of the classroom teachers here at my school use it, and that's like a little desk bell. I have these in 2 locations in my room, and it means to stop, look, and listen. I tie this in also with my behavior management system, that if my students do stop, they listen to my direction, they get a point. If I have to remind them that this means to get quiet, they get a frown point. So we have like the happy and sad, and we do mark it down and we talk about what that means each and every time. They're not allowed to ignore my directions. You'll save yourself a lot of headaches if you can think ahead about individual transitions that will need to happen and how your students should handle this. So think about things where the whole group is doing one thing and then something is going to need to change. Like, for example, your students are drawing and then their pencil breaks. What do? Have you taught all of your classes what to do when that happens? For me, my students have a pencil cup at their table. Presumably, there are enough pencils in there for everybody at the table. So they simply just take the broken one, they bring it to our pencil hospital, and they trade it out for another pencil. We also have a backup spot near the front of the room where we keep extra pencils should someone need to refill that cup. But the first few times that we are using pencils, I'm teaching all of my classes this. I shouldn't have a student bringing a broken pencil to me. I shouldn't have a student looking around for the pencil sharpener. They should really know how to transition, how to keep things moving for themselves if an issue like that pops up. Same thing with if they need a Band-Aid. I have a little serve yourself Band-Aid station. Only if you're bleeding is the rule, but if there is someone that just needs a fake boo-boo Band-Aid one day, whatever, fine. It doesn't involve me when they need a Band-Aid. If they need to go to the bathroom, we have a system for that. So make sure you have a system for that too, because that's one of those things that everybody's working and then one person needs to go to the bathroom and it becomes contagious. So I've got a whole video about managing the bathroom, because that is a whole huge topic. I will definitely put a link to that in the pinned comments down below and in the description, but that one, you're gonna wanna get a hold of that transition. Also think about things like if your students have a spill. So the first time that you are painting, go through what's going to happen if you spill your water on the floor, because you don't want the answer to all of these things be that they come to you. teaching is overwhelming enough. You want your students to be independent. There are certain things and certain transitions they can take care of themselves. These things come up every single day. Somebody needs a Band-Aid. Every single day, somebody has to go to the bathroom. So they need to know how to deal with these things without it always involving you. So the last type of transition is just an unexpected transition, which I feel like happens a lot in elementary school. Like one day is not like the day before. There is a band and strings assembly. We're leaving early today, so there's a shortened schedule. Surprise, there is a fire drill. Things that you really cannot prepare your students for, but you have to stop them. You've got to get their attention. You've got to explain how things will be different and how the transition will be managed. For the fire drill, if you already have that lineup routine, they'll know exactly what to do in a fire drill to stand on your number spots and wait for you. But that's something you'll want to go over and you'll want to teach so that you are not caught with a class that doesn't know what to do, because those days when things are unexpected are hard anyways. So getting your students to know to look to you for directions, for them to know that you're going to be organized and you're going to have a plan, is going to have them be a little bit more on board with helping you. So hopefully this video will help make your job a little bit easier, get you thinking about those transitions and what you can do to make them easy, teach them more clearly to your students, and get them working for you in your art room. I have over 185 art room management videos on this channel. I hope that you'll peek around. I hope that you will subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.